Welcome in to the Paul Kuharsky Podcast. I am Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com, the best place for Titans news, analysis, commentary. Hope you are a member. If you're not, you need to join by the time we end this episode. Appreciate you being here. We are going to talk about Cam, the contrarian quarterback, Jeffery Simmons' ridiculous metrics and play this year. Core 11 as an excellent substitute for Lloyd Cushenberry. The odds of the Titans winning back-to-back games in their current state after a good win in Cleveland, an anti-tanking mechanism that came up in my Threads feed today that I think is not a bad idea overall, and much, much more. A lot of your questions, as always, will feed our content here. I'm happy to see you. I'm at Edley's at 12 South, the best barbecue place, best restaurant in Nashville. 8 local locations for you to choose from. We will talk more about them. I'll make some picks going forward, coming off a bad week, but still a pretty good overall record. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Feel free to retweet right now as we build our crowd in here. Wanted to start with Cam Ward. The Titans win, and Cam Ward puts no extra value on it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. All season, every time he's been asked about anything, incremental improvements, upticks, terrible days, he's said the same thing. All he cares about is winning. And then the Titans go to Cleveland. They play a pretty good game throughout. They score 31 points, which we know is not Titans territory. And after that, he completely scrambles this consistent message that made sense that he's delivered all season. Quote, I really didn't need it. I treat the wins the same. I treat the losses the same. And after a few days, that was Sunday. And then, of course, on Wednesday, I asked for clarification. And he said, I mean, winning and losing, they both got a price. They both got a price to pay. It just depends on which one you want to be a part of. Now, who's choosing to be a part of losing? Look, I've defended Cam Ward all season and said one of the best things about him is his sensibility. Hasn't gotten sour, facing a lot of tough questions about his play, about the Titans losing. But part of that has been this flag that he planted, that winning is the thing above all else. And then when they go and win and he downplays it in a nonsensical way, I mean, he did follow up talking about the standards and winning can cover up some things. But to not, and I don't, he didn't need to be, happy or overjoyed about the win or anything like that. But to say winning and losing are the same after all season, you've said winning is the thing. All of a sudden, he looked like a confused kid who doesn't really understand things. He's been a good messenger generally, but he can be a contrarian. He can come across as stubborn, and he certainly seemed confused here. So all these times that he said, well, it's all about winning, this makes him look bad. And more importantly, it makes him look like he doesn't have the handle on things that I thought he did. I'm curious your thoughts on that. I don't think it's any kind of federal issue, but as he grows, it seems like there's some kind of disconnect there, and it makes me uncomfortable. Everything is always negative with this team, the CRA says. I mean, I think it's a big negative. It was a good win. There's a lot to take from it, but it's a curious storyline. Ryan says he downplays it in response from last week, asking about how losing is testing his love of the game. I don't see how. I don't really see the connection there. How would I feel about the Titans trying to get Isaiah Likely in the offseason? He'll be an unrestricted free agent. He's an unrestricted free agent already. His 4 years have flown by. A little banged up, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm not sure about him as a blocker. I would need to research that. Certainly brings some size and some playmaking ability. I have memberships available all the time. I mean, my big all 22 is full, but you can join paulkuharsky.com for $7.50 a month or $81 a year, which amounts to a 10% discount at any time. And all are welcome. It's less than the price of a cup of coffee or struggling here, or a cocktail or a beer, and very, very good value. Daryl says, I disagree. He played bad and wanted to play better. Nothing wrong with this response. This is not a story. Well, it's a discussion. Everybody kind of confused about a story, like the Will Bowling thing. Is that a story? I tweeted some news about it. I mean, what categorizes a story to you? You can discuss something, it not be a story, et cetera, et cetera. He played bad and wanted to play better. Well, he can articulate that better than his response to say winning and losing are the same. That's nonsensical. That's nonsense. So that's a story to me. You're here in my podcast. I think for a young quarterback, for anybody to say winning and losing are the same, that's ridiculous. It's nonsensical. CRA says, I agree with Paul. I'm still happy he wasn't satisfied with it. We tried to give it away and got way too conservative. Cam knew if the Browns convert to 2, they likely win. He was pissed. While I agree with Paul. And that's fine. You contextualize it after it's over. And for a team that's been desperate for wins, and for a guy that's talked about winning all year as his end game, didn't seem like he stuck to his own mantra, which then I think weakens his mantra. Ivan Gregory says, I want to give Cam an out on this one. He's open to the media and maybe to a fault. I don't want to take one thing that goes against everything he stood for all year. Well, it's the second time. He said you've got to lose to win the week before, which also it's a loser's mentality, Ryan says, to expect someone to be happy about being 2-11. Dude just wants more. I'm not saying you need to be happy. I'm saying don't tell me wins and losses are the same. What's the disconnect here between me and you guys? I didn't say you need to come in there and throw a parade or do anything like that. He can feel how he feels. Don't tell me winning and losing are the same after you've told me all year the thing that you need more than anything, that trumps everything, the end goal, which is the right thing to say, which is what you want people to feel, which is the natural feeling that a quarterback or any football player should have, is winning above all else. We need to win. Well, then after you win, you can't say, well, it's the same as all those losses. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. What else we got? According to Google, likely is an average run blocker. Well, here's the other thing. It's going to be hard to find good run blocking tight ends generally. Average run blocker at tight end can be a good thing. Are you trading him out for Chig? Better size. I don't know, speed. Yeah, he is not mentally weak. Ivan says, I think I'm reading this right. He's not mentally weak like Mariota, but I do think the losing is taking a toll. And we'll see how he bounces back. This is no death blow to his thinking or mentality or anything like that. But I do think, maybe the losing is taking its toll. I also think there's an issue of who he's surrounded by. Like some of these veterans, we know what Arden Key, unfortunately for a lot of people, we know what Arden Key said on the plane, and that's the second or third example of Cam kind of going against the veteran tutoring he's had. And look, some of it's been bad. When he said we asked, veterans didn't take that well, and I have no problem with that. I thought that's here's a guy being candid in a leadership position, and veterans don't like it because they have to answer. We have to answer for that, and when you put us in that position, we don't like it. And that's bullshit. But I don't think he loves all of the guidance that he's getting from the veterans, and I don't think a lot of those veterans are not of the caliber where they are. How should we say it? They the caliber of player that has the stripes to be advising a number one pick, even if he's not playing well. So Arden Key, Arden Key is not a productive, successful guy who I think Cam necessarily takes, greatly seriously. Jeff Simmons, he definitely listens to, right? Who else should he be definitely listening to on this team? I know Lockett did not play well for the Titans, but Lockett knows how the NFL works, right? Lockett had been on winning teams. Lockett being around was a guy whose counsel Cam Ward should have taken. But there aren't too many guys on this team that you could look at and say, well, Cam should definitely listen to him. And that's a failure of the roster and all of that. You need a couple of those guys. Who are those guys on this team? I invite you to give me a list, but it's not a very long list. It's not a very long list. What are two or three, Alex, changing the topic here, what are two or three of the more discernible and tangible things that the Vrabel coaching team did to build a winning culture that you'd like to see repeated by the new team / new staff in 2026? Two or three of the more discernible and tangible things that the Vrabel coaching staff did to build a winning culture. Well, look, I mean, the most obvious one is this. Vrabel and his staff, as they designed a game plan, gave the team very clearly 3 points. If we do these three things, our odds of winning the game are super high. And very often, the hit rate on that was probably over 80%, 85%, that if they did the three things that Vrabel told them they needed to do to win the game, they would win the game. And that the buy-in off of that, the team's belief in him for that, was through the roof. And if they failed to do those things, he could go in there on Monday and say, look, we didn't do number one and number two, and I told you, if we did those things, we would win. Well, here on the video screen is us not doing those things, and that's why we didn't win. I think that, more than anything, was that achieved so much in terms of buy-in, in terms of showing those guys that Vrabel and his people knew what they were talking about, that they could identify problems with the other team, that they could identify ways to attack those problems on the other team. So that, to me, would be the number one thing about your question, Alex. Kirby and Daniel, you are in a timeout. Don't care to hear from you. Christopher, back on Cam, says, I'm right. Cam does love to play the other side. When a reporter asks a question that tends to lead towards agreement, it always feels like he goes the other way. I might test this next week and ask something like exceptionally obvious to see if he would disagree with it. Yeah, I'm not saying that everybody, CRA, Ackerman regularly missed the message of those things. Ackerman was a terrible coach. Special teams were a big problem throughout. I'm not saying Vrabel was that didn't miss. Zeitler should be that guy, but I don't get the feeling he's vocal. You would have liked for Zeitler to come in and be that guy. Hey, I'm an experienced offensive lineman. I've had success around the league. I could take you under my wing and show you a lot. Doesn't feel like he is that. Also, I think he needs to play well in order to win over certain people. And I feel like that would be the case with Cam. Chris asks, is Jeff a good bet for an extension sooner rather than later? I'm afraid he might be Albert Haynesworth contract year hero when he's got no more guaranteed money. Well, he's under contract beyond this year, so he's got no power outside of not showing up to things. And he wasn't showing up to things last offseason anyway. But I absolutely think once they decide not to trade him, they're deciding he's a big part of our long-term future. And, we haven't seen We have not seen Mike Borgonzi deal with a big extension for a big player. He did extend to Monty Hooker. We haven't seen that work out great so far, but I fully expect that they will give Jeff Simmons an extension or a big new contract sometime between now and the start of training camp next year. He's done everything they could have asked and more, and they're going to show the team that they reward that. Though there aren't too many. I mean, the young guys will see that and take a message from it, and that's significant and important. And so they'll take something from that for sure. Here's our guy. Look how he does his stuff, and look what you get as a result of that. I think that will be a significant moment for this team, for this locker room, whatever percentage of it remains. Arden Key, Ivan says, from all indications, is a problem in the locker room, bad culture guy. I think that's a little overstated. I don't think he's a problem in the locker room. I think as long as you have a strong locker room, he's fine. You need to have a fun, lighthearted guy and personalities like Arden Key in your locker room. Arden Key is an up and down player who is a streaky player. But I think in a strong locker room, Arden Key is fine. I don't have any problem with what he did on the plane, which we shouldn't know about. And maybe we'll discuss that further. I would be happy to take a question on that. But I don't think Arden Key's a bad guy or bad. You just don't want him to be in a position of leadership. And I think his volume can give him a position of leadership which is above his stature based on there not being enough leadership on the team, if that makes sense. And so that's where you get into a danger. Do I have any pulse of the locker room and how they view Cam? My sense is, and I haven't talked to anybody directly about this, and I don't think guys would talk about this, but I think, they want the quarterback to be a leader. And so they certainly follow, respect him and all of that. But, when Key, who's not the best spokesman, as I just said, and Simmons talked about kids not taking the advice of veteran leadership the way they used to, they were talking primarily about Latham and Sweat. But there also may have been a bit of Cam in there. Easy there, Ryan. May have been a bit of Cam in there too. Not to a problematic level, but there. CRA raises, along with Lockett, who I mentioned, Diggs. Could have been those vets if it worked out. But it's really sad we can't produce a list of vets that Cam can learn from. It's terrible. Wow. I should have mentioned Diggs. That's a good pull. The Diggs being related, cousin of Cam, I think was an influential guy. I think it was helpful to have around. And, it's worse for them not to have him. But I do think, and I said this, I thought once Winston was elevated, that he would have been a problem and bristly about not getting playing time. I'm Paul Kuharsky. This is the Paul Kuharsky Podcast. I'm at Edley's Barbecue at 12 South. You should sign up, be a member. Benefits of membership go well beyond podcasts, and benefits of eating at Edley's are having a full belly on delicious food. Jeremy Beach says, DK, Helm, Winston, and Gray seem like good building blocks. Do I see a trade going on after upper-tier free agency in the offseason, or is there going to be a build through the draft leadership with Borgonzi? I don't see any kind of trades. I mean, the one trade possibility could be something involving Levis, but I think, it could be better for them to keep Levis until a team winds up in real need. His value is probably going to be the lowest it's ever going to be with him coming off shoulder surgery and not having been seen, there's no room for him to advertise his recovery, and so that hurts his value. And that's one of the reasons that what he did in terms of timing the surgery was not healthy for them. I mean, JR asks if it's safe to buy his son a Simmons jersey. I think it's safe to buy your son a Simmons jersey in that Simmons will be here all the time. I don't want to throw Simmons under the bus. I would buy a jersey of somebody with a nicer disposition, frankly. It'll be interesting, S. Rob says, to see how they defend Kittle. Purdy hardly throws to anyone outside Kittle and McCaffrey. Linebackers are in for one this week. Cedric Gray's coverage is not his strong suit. Certainly Amani Hooker's coverage has been off. Cody Barton's coverage is off. Winston is overextended playing nickel when he's a safety, but he's really set in that position now. So, yeah, that's going to be tough. Banksy says Vrabel's way of playing only led to multiple injuries. Only led to multiple injuries and the number one seed in the AFC and an AFC championship game appearance. But outside of that, only injury. Chase, back to Cam, says, not a super big deal, but if you said to him after Cleveland, I mean, this win doesn't really mean much. It's similar to a loss at this point in the year, don't you think? He would say, no, we need wins. I don't know. It's not similar to a loss. A win goes in a different column in the standings than a loss, and that's what he's been saying all year. And then he shot that in the foot, deflated that balloon in one post-game press conference. It made no sense. Let's talk about Jeffery Simmons. Jeffery Simmons deserves to be first-team All-Pro. Mike Herndon wrote at paulkuharsky.com, Jeffery Simmons deserves to be first-team All-Pro. Mike Herndon wrote at paulkuharsky.com this week a great piece about Simmons and the metrics where he's not only top, but he's the top by such a distance. Like the second place guy and the 20th guy have the same distance between them that Jeff has between him and the second place guy. You need to go read this piece. Simmons also talked to us after the Cleveland game. He committed a penalty and was mad at himself and said, well, I need to go take over now, and then had like a tackle for a loss and a sack on the next two plays. That's how good he's been this season in terms of being able to control things and to dominate a game. Mike says he's taken over the crown. Chris Jones was the best defensive tackle in the league after Aaron Donald, but now it's Jeff Simmons. And I'm totally on board with that case. It is incredibly impressive what Jeffery Simmons has done this year. And, without that, the Titans would really, really have nothing. Let's hear from Simmons about his expectation. The interesting thing about Simmons is most guys won't look ahead, right? They are all about next game, one game at a time, all those cliches. And Jeff hasn't abided by that cliche this year. He's talked several times about getting stuff on film and deciding who they want to be next year. He looked 5 games ahead. Now he's looking 4 games ahead, 3 games ahead. Here's Jeff kind of looking at the Niners and looking beyond the Niners.
That's the goal. I mean, that's the harder part about playing in this league, is stacking wins, not having that I guess being comfortable with winning one game. We're in a situation right now to where, like I talked about last week, we got 4 games left, and we're going into a situation in the offseason to where we really got to figure out what type of team we really want to be going into the offseason and into next year. So it's all about what we put on tape. And, of course, we dominated the game for 3 quarters. And, some of the plays we gave up in the fourth quarter as a defense, especially, that's something we talked about today. Let that ignite us to play better for 4 quarters going into this weekend. So, just a good football team. We could go up there. They still trying to win their division. So, what better feeling to go up there to kill some dreams and going on the road to, I'm sure there's going to be a nice environment, playoff type of environment. So they got a good team, and hopefully we can go out there with a good mindset that we can play good football for 4 quarters.
What about
figure out what kind of team we want to be? He's kind of referred to that multiple times. And the number one person who's going to help Jeff Simmons and the Titans who are going to be on this roster next year figure out what kind of team they want to be is obviously the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated had a list of like 40, 45 guys in the coaching pipeline. Much better list than Tom Pelissero's 161 guys. Worth a read. You should check that out. Very, very good and in-depth. And look, Titans could have already talked to Marcus Freeman if they're interested in going that direction. I don't think they will. If they're interested in Mike McCarthy, which certainly I think they will at the very least interview him. Rules allow them to have conversations with him or other people who are not employed by NFL teams. Those conversations can happen before the season's over. So how much they have how far they've gone with that to this point, we don't know. There's no reason for them not to have gotten a head start on that. A Mike Borgonzi and a Chad Brinker are not so busy with other things that they shouldn't get a head start on working on job one by any means. Ryan says, this is why we need a culture coach, not a rookie QB trying to lead the entire room. And that is for sure. Going back to the Levis comment, the CRA said, so what that means is Levis screws us again. Well, I mean, that's already built into the screw of him timing up the surgery as he did. I mean, we knew that was a factor for the Titans when Levis chose to have surgery right before the start of training camp. Would I cut Cushenberry in the offseason given the production they've gotten from Levin? Also figured he'd be more of a leader for the offensive line room, and it doesn't sound like he is. Look, Lloyd Cushenberry has been a dud for the Titans. And Corey Levin has played really well the last 2 weeks. He's energized the run game in an impressive fashion. And I talked to Corey Levin. I'll play a clip for you in a minute here. He knows what he is and what his role is. So, it'll be hard for him to go back to the bench, certainly. And Cushenberry's going to re-inherit that starting spot, it seems like, unfortunately. But I wouldn't make the jump from Levin playing well for some games as a substitute to Levin being a starting caliber center for the Titans going forward. A lot of assessments to be made by a new coach and a new staff. I would lose Cushenberry and Zeitler. I would hope that Jackson Slater is equipped to at least contend for one of those spots. And then I would go find the best veteran you can again. Linderbaum, I think, is available. Now, that may be the best offensive lineman available, and he happens to play one of your biggest positions of need. Get him. But they've got to make another veteran move, at least one starting caliber veteran inside. I would try to re-sign Blake Hance. I know he's disappeared, but I think he was qualified as good interior depth. Uli Udo should be back, and there's going to be a big market for him, not as a starter, but as a third tackle. People like him. People were interested in him at cut time and the Titans very clearly were keeping him. Got to keep him. That's good. Pay a premium third tackle price for him. Moore's been playing better. Latham, I mean, those guys are coming off a very good offensive line game with what they did for the run game and what they did for Myles Garrett. So the arrow's up a little bit. Sustainability, always a big question mark. Who's the offensive line coach going to be? Lot to be sorted out still. But speaking of Corey Levin, look, he's the kind of guy you want to have around. I don't know what kind of market there will be for Corey Levin. I think he's the kind of guy you want to keep on the Tennessee Titans in the role he's in, interior backup. I had a little conversation with him this week. Here he is.
Like you said, I know my job, so I know my role, whatever that is, being where my feet are and taking it day by day, taking advantage of opportunities when I have them so that I can create future opportunity, whether that's now or in the future, here or wherever that is, whenever.
A guy at your stage of your career who's been through the transactions you've been through is usually kind of established. You would be what you are. You seem to be getting better, which I think is unusual. Would you agree with that? And what does it feel like?
Yeah, like you said, I don't think there's many guys going in year 9, year 10 who, like you said, don't already know what they are or what they could provide. And to me, that's just kind of how I've taken it day by day in my career. Haven't gotten a lot of starts, haven't gotten to put a lot of film out there. So every time I do, I feel like I just build a little bit more confidence and I'm able to be a little bit more comfortable and play the game how I want to play out there. Like you said, it feels good to put good film out there and potentially get more opportunities.
You think to yourself somewhere in your head, I may be an NFL starter in 2026?
That's always how I carry myself as a starter, just so whenever my number is called, we can execute a game plan.
What has it been in the run game that has helped you kind of give things a boost?
I just think we're understanding the schemes and we're working well together. It's not like I just got out there by myself and made the thing come to life. It's all 5 of us working together. Like I'm sure it's been pointed out several times on that long run by Tony, you had Gunner take out 2 guys. You had Van way downfield, even springing it even more for a touchdown. So it's not just one guy out there. I think we had a great plan. We executed it well. Gratifying personally, though? Absolutely. Anytime you work hard for something, you go out there and see success and you're a part of it, it feels good.
Easy guy to like, Corey Levin. He's been on and off the Titans for years. 10 years? That's kind of insane. Edley's Barbecue. I'm at the 12 South location right now. You should come eat here. 12 South, Nolansville, Franklin at the factory, Franklin and Berry Farms, Sylvan Park, East Nashville, Donaldson, Gallatin. I have made your request for a Clarksville location known, and Will Newman, fine owner of the whole operation, says it's under consideration. Download the Edley's app. It is a wonder. Look, you're getting thrashed by DoorDash and Uber Eats and all that stuff. The delivery fees are outrageous. Edley's will bring their home feel to your door in a hurry, hot, fast, and the delivery fees are tiny compared to what you are used to from those delivery services. So, look, you ought to come here, right? Have a business lunch here. Bring the family here. I'm sitting at the bar. Ryan's the greatest over here, pouring cold drinks that you can get with your hot food, great portions, reasonable prices, all of that. But if you can't make it here, download the app. You punch in your zip code. It tells you if you're in range. With all those locations, odds of you not being in range are very low. they'll get that stuff to your house quickly. They want it to be just like you're eating in the restaurant. And again, the delivery fees incredibly reasonable. I've had a great relationship with Edley's for years now. Will Newman and his crew at every one of these restaurants work their butts off to make it just the best barbecue, the best food you can get, and they treat you like you're eating at their house. Feels like their house. So give them a try. Check out the app, Edley's Barbecue. I can't say enough good things, and I know you guys consistently in the comments always echo my strong feelings about them. So hop on board. We'll get back to your questions here and see what you've got going on. I appreciate you being here. Pirtle wants anybody but McCarthy. The problem, CRA says, with cutting Kush is the cap hit next year. Ridley and Snead are more manageable to get off. So at minimum, keep Kush as depth. It's hard to keep a guy like that as depth. And Curtis says here, Levin, older, better run blocker, but not sure if he's a full-time starter. I agree with that. CRA says I would give Levin a shot in 2027. So you're jumping a year ahead. I think you mean 2026, meaning if we properly replace Zeitler and Latham develops correctly, give him a shot year after next, since we can't get out of Kush next year. You're projecting too far out there. And Jackson Slater's should be in the mix if he's developing. Need to ask about him behind the scenes and give you a better assessment. So we'll see. Kush, CRA is providing the numbers here. Kush is 12 million cap hit, but 9 in dead money, so only 3 million saved. You have to keep him and let the new coach decide. Well, yeah, you don't have to. The new coach is going to be hired in January. You don't have to make a cut like that until March. I mean, you can make it later than that, but you want to be fair to Cushenberry. 3 million saved, I'll take. Robert says, to be fair to Vrabel, Brewer's having one hell of a year in Miami. He is, and he's gotten better. And Vrabel and his staff loved Aaron Brewer. But Aaron Brewer did not play nearly as well as those guys made it out to be. Made him out to be. So props to them for discovering a guy that's turned into a player. He wasn't that player here. I'll say that. Tate, Lemon, or Tyson, who fits Cam better? I have to say I know more about Tate than Lemon for sure. Teron Davenport, a good friend of mine and more into draft prospects than I am. Doesn't like West Coast receivers. And had to fight, and they tend not to be dogs to the same degree. I do buy into that thinking a little bit. I like Tate the best. I think you could get Tate, 8, 9, 10. That's the range I'd like to see the Titans trade into. Brewer was too small for the type of scheme they ran at the time. Certainly a possibility. Here's something I came across on Threads. I'm on Threads. You guys on Threads? Threads is a good place to be. It's kind of a difference, much more lighthearted place than Twitter, which we know is an absolute cesspool. So, they're going to have to do something. With 17 games, too many teams are out of it sooner. And that leads to this tanking conversation. When they get to 18 games, it's going to be even bigger. Here's a solution that I saw from somebody on Threads. What if, as like punishment for finishing low, where we don't want to, what is it as a punishment for what seems like tanking, for somebody that's finishing at the bottom? You don't want to hurt their draft position, because these worst teams do need to replenish their roster with the draft, and that's the way the league worked. But nobody wants to be on Hard Knocks, right? And this would have to be negotiated. What if you had to be on Hard Knocks? What if the bottom 4 teams, despite the fact that odds are several of them are going to have new coaches, which gets you out of being on Hard Knocks, what if the teams with the top 4 draft picks were automatically eligible for Hard Knocks? Now, I don't know how much that would dissuade a team from wanting to be high in the draft, but you want to be shitty and you want to get that top pick when it comes down to December, January football. Well, then we're going to get to peer in to how things go with that first pick or that high pick in his first training camp. We're going to get behind the scenes stuff on that. Now, yeah, I mean, you've got some editing control and all of that, but nevertheless, you play shitty football down the stretch and get those picks, there's a decent chance cameras are going to come and watch your operation. I don't think that's a bad thing to throw into the mix there to make it a little less enticing to lose games at the end and get a higher pick. What do you think? We've got Cush's cap number there. What else we got? Let's finish up strong here with some. Twitter has gotten worse and worse. Maybe it's time to check out Threads. I think it's worth being on both. No one would watch it, though. I don't think that's true. I mean, I'm off Hard Knocks because I'm off HBO because I cut the cord and, have pieced together streaming platforms. But I think Hard Knocks has its hardcore audience and everybody watches everything. And why would nobody watch? You don't want to see the first, second, third, fourth pick in the draft come into the league? Force them to have a toilet bowl banner displayed. Public humiliation works. Robert says, the main change I want to see is allowing teams one chance per game to convert a 4th and 14 for a first down in place of an onside kick. Be an exciting play. Why only one? Why 14 and not 15? I do think they need to find a better alternative to an onside kick. And quite frankly, I think the game is inherently dangerous, and there are going to be dangerous times inside a game, and I don't have a problem. I mean, it's not my body. It's not my players being put at risk. But how often are there going to be onside kicks? Just go back to old school onside kicks. Robert says, MLB, if a team offers a qualifying offer to a pending free agent, the team that signs them has to relinquish a mid-round draft pick. If you win, say, 3 games or less in the NFL, you would have to relinquish a mid-round pick. See, this didn't work for me. Bad teams relinquishing picks keeps them bad teams. So you can't punish them by taking away picks. It just helps keep them bad, and that's not what we want. We want the process to work to provide picks and good picks to bad teams to help them get better, to maintain parity. So you can't punish teams that seem to be intentionally being bad near the end of the year to increase their draft position by hurting them with the draft. You have to find another way to hurt them. That's my thinking. Here, Tom says you hurt their revenue share instead. I mean, it's a very complicated issue in terms of, determining who's not trying to win, right? This is why, and I'm not suggesting that there ever be a relegation element in any American sport, but it is one thing that soccer has going for it in that there's a race at the top and there's a race at the bottom. And the bottom of the table is a fascinating thing to watch at the end of, say, a European soccer season. It can be, you know. A couple of years ago, I think it was Everton that was staying up, and Everton playing for the 17th spot, or the 17th spot, I think, was unbelievable. And then winning the game that kept them up was an incredibly exciting thing. Imagine if there was a mechanism like that. And I'm not saying it's going to be relegation, but imagine if a Titans or Raiders or a Browns game in late December, early January produced that kind of anticipation and consequence. It's really something remarkable. Back to some coaching talk. Guitar Metal Demon asks if I believe McCarthy would be a good candidate for a rebuild, or being more culture-focused coach be better. I don't think McCarthy faced this awful situation in Green Bay or Dallas. Look, you can't have like a strictly a culture-focused coach or strictly an X and Y. The coach has to be everything, right? I think McCarthy could get the Titans to a certain level. But I also think, watching some of the things he did in Dallas on Hard Knocks, frankly, seemed a little bit of a dinosaur who was disconnected from his players, throwing old stuff at them. Austin Powers clips in his videos, where I don't think most players playing in 2022 or 2023 have any fucking idea what Austin Powers is. So can you put a lid on it, please? So I don't think he relates to the young guys that well. And I think that is a major, major factor. A new Tennessee Titans coach can be culture heavy, X's and O's heavy, whatever. I think he needs to be, he's going to have strengths and weaknesses, but he's got to be good to a significant degree at all of those things. But he absolutely, absolutely has to relate to players. And that's why in these national reports where guys are talking broadly as if they know a lot, they're saying they think that youth is a key element. Well, the reason that a young guy is probably going to end up getting this job is that young guys get these jobs virtually everywhere because they can relate to the young players in the league now. And the young players in the league now are a different breed of guy than the kind of guys that Mike McCarthy coached in his prime. They've got to be relatable. Otherwise, there's a disconnect right from the start. A grandfatherly coach, and we're seeing one right now in Mike McCoy, who actually isn't as old as we think. He's only 53. But he's got a grandfatherly style. It does not work. Period. What else we got? We'll take a couple more here. Appreciate all of you coming. Curtis mentions really my two guys, Salah or Kubiak, and Robert is my top guy. I think, still giving myself time, and Kubiak is kind of my more outsider, but I like the idea of both of those guys. And this S-Rob, I didn't even realize this. He said, similar to how MLB awards a pick to the team who has Rookie of the Year as an incentive to play rookies. Well, I don't know if that's an incentive to play rookies. If you have a guy who's good enough to be Rookie of the Year, he's going to play, right? MB, I'm not interested in McCarthy, Salah, or Nagy. I'd be disappointed. They need to think outside the box like the Cowboys did with Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer is not a good hire. I mean, That's outside the box. The son of a former NFL head coach who is offensive coordinator from in-house. You think that's an outside the box hire? It's a lazy, effortless, under Jerry's thumb hire. He's doing okay right now and seems like a likable guy, but that's not outside the box. I think you're misidentifying the box. How about Jim Schwartz? Somebody says. I think Jim Schwartz has proved. Now, I mean, he just lost to the Titans, so that doesn't look very good. Jim Schwartz is a really good defensive mind. He's got people who worked under him, like Matt Burke, doing a very good job. So had a nice hug with Amy on the sideline and knows her. So I would think he'd get a look. Starting to be at the older edge of things, but I think he'll get some consideration. Josh McDaniel not getting another head coaching job in the league. Johnny asks, how would I feel about the Titans poaching him, improving the team while pulling the rug out from under Vrabel? He's unreliable. The guy bailed on the Colts. He was terrible in Denver. He's a coordinator for life now. Absolutely unreliable. Would current firing candidates like a Tomlin or Stefanski be appealing for the Titans? I think Stefanski's a good coach. I think it'd be a tough sell to put him at the podium and say, here's a guy from our 2-win season that we got one of our wins against. So I think that would be difficult. Mike Tomlin, I mean, I think would have a pick of open jobs if he left. I think Giants would probably be number one there, but I understand Pittsburgh's complaints with him, the city of Pittsburgh. They've got to decide on him. They've got a 2027 option that comes due March 1st of 2026 with Tomlin. So you would presume they'd make a decision on that pretty quickly. If they parted, it would be mutual. I think this is largely media driven. And I expect that he'll end up saying. CRA says, I just don't like seeing the news that we're looking at all options and doing this expansive search if in the end we hire Nagy or McCarthy and both those guys are friends with Brinker and Barganzi. Well, I mean, look, if they hire one of those guys who's friends with Brinker and Barganzi, at least they will have looked at a lot of other people. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a fair point from Ken. Ken, nice to see you. I don't recognize your name. You should come and be a member of paulkuharsky.com. Amy doesn't want Tomlin. Tomlin wants roster control, and that's what got Vrabel fired. And you're right. He'd have to work with Barganzi, though I don't know that Tomlin has had the degree of roster control you might think. Kevin Colbert was a very good general manager, and I think they worked hand in hand. And that's why I think Omar Khan is kind of skating here, but Tomlin probably got more roster control when Colbert left. And that maybe has been part of the problem. Also, when you're Steelers level good, like in the playoffs and losing in the first round all the time, you never quite have the draft capital that you need to get the kind of difference makers that they want, though you should be able to find those guys. Baltimore does it. Freeman would be really interesting, but I don't see why he'd come here when I bet he'd have better options if the NFL is his goal. I think he would have better options as well. Freeman is apparently very much a CEO type of head coach at Notre Dame, which is set up differently than a lot of other places. Look, you take less money to be in the NFL than you do at some of the top college programs, but you have a much better life. A college coach is a 365-day-a-year job, and the NFL is not. The NFL, you actually have some reasonable days during the offseason, and you have some actual time off. And I think that's pretty appealing. Pretty appealing. Listen, join paulkuharsky.com, $7.50 a month. I see some of you in here. I don't recognize your name, and I'm thrilled to have you. Come, read Mike Herndon, read Blake Bedingfield, read Drew Beatty, read Braden Gall. A lot of variety. No better one-stop shop to get all your Titans content and analysis and news. Be the smartest guy at the water cooler. And then you support independent journalism, quite frankly. Who's done better holding the Titans' feet to the fire about the decisions they've made, the decisions that they haven't made. I think, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I think I do a lot for this market with regard to the Tennessee Titans. And you being a member of my site helps me continue to do that. So I humbly ask for your support to continue to do that on your behalf. And you're the smartest fans there are out there. So join the effort. This team has a lot that needs to be done and a lot of questions that need to be asked. And I'll be out there asking them. I appreciate you being here. Happy holidays. I hope you're having a great December. I will do a podcast from the press box in San Francisco after I write, after the game is over. If you're a member, you'll get a text message telling you when I'm starting. That's another bonus. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks again for coming. Eat at Edley's. Don't block the box, but be sure to lock your locks.